Hi, this is Ken, and I'm still learning how to put my own small window in the window of an existing video. Let me bring this up. Come on, grab it. There you go. Helps if I see myself talk. It's probably my third attempt already, and there we go. Go back down there. I think I have to stay on there. Okay, this is Tom Horn. Thomas Horn, Dr. Thomas Horn. Former pastor of, 28 years. I think I'm going by memory. So these will all be approximate things. He is a doctorate, did hold a doctorate. I tried to find out if it was in divinity or in theology or what. I'm sure it wasn't medicine. And it was in something theological. He passed about a year ago. A man of a few dreams, and a man that God, and now this is starting at this point here. This is my humble opinion. Tom's gone now to be with the Lord. He's a little younger than me. I'm 75. He passed, I think, at 68. Right, raised a family, and he was on Prophecy Watchers a lot, or ran it, in fact, or something along that line. Partially ran it or hosted it, consistently. And God, in my humble opinion, decided to call him out to bring some information in these latter days. Now, we are in the latter days. According to Daniel 12:4, God says to Daniel, or the angel, whoever was talking to him, it's certainly not angel or not, it was still God saying these things. The angel was just speaking what he was told to say. Seal up these words, this book, until the end times. And then, what's called the Lord said, well, he explained what the end times would look like. The Lord says, seal up this book, Daniel, until the time of the end, or these end times, where people will go to and fro, and knowledge will increase. Well, people are going to and fro way beyond the imagination of 2,500 years ago, okay? We got 4,500 flights a day. Flights. No, not 4,500. 45,000. I don't know if I misspoke or not, but 45,000. And each flight probably carries 150 people. So you do the math. And you folks all have cars anymore. We all do, and we all go to and fro in our cars. Not just fly. I haven't flown in 10, 20 years and don't intend to anymore. And so God gave him a dream. In this 11-minute video, he's going to talk about his dream. His first dream was to establish him. Now, I've heard no one else explain this. I don't know why. It seems obvious to me that God had to first establish him as a prophet by giving him a vision or a dream of Pope Benedict around the year 2011 or so. Was going to be replaced before he died. See, popes don't get replaced while they're living. They generally go and then they die and then they get replaced. And in fact, within the last week or so, Pope Benedict's replacement just died. And now he needs replaced, and the Catholic Church is waiting for the replacement. Excuse me. So, very unusual. According to the Catholic Church, it had been 600-700 years since the Catholic Church ever replaced a living and sitting pope. But here it is. But I'll let Tom tell his own story because I don't remember it quite as good as I need to. But here you're going to see something nobody's ever seen. You're going to see how God, at least in this case, presents a person as a prophet. Okay? He gives them something impossible to know, and then it comes true. And that's... So why would God bother making this man a prophet and declaring him as someone we should listen to? See, prophets aren't declared to be prophets so they can sit on parades and wave like this. Hi, I'm a prophet. My name's Ken. Hello, hi, little child. How you doing? Bless you. All this other stuff. No, that's not what prophets do. I had to play around there a little. Prophets are meant to bring information, important information to mankind, especially to those that belong to God, Christians. So God established him through this dream about Pope Benedict being replaced something like a year before it happened, and it happened. But see, I'm putting pieces together. I don't even hear. Tom's got an adult theological trained son who's not even who used to sit with him on Prophecy Watchers and other events, and the man's easily in his late 30s now, and yet he hasn't come forward and seemed to put together what I'm presenting to you right now. That his father was a prophet, Tom Horn here. God established him as a prophet because why? Well, because he had a greater message that he was going to bring again and again through a dream later on about Apophis. That if we are told someone is a prophet and God proves it that they are, and they're not one of these hookums guys, people, and there's a billion of them, they're everywhere. Like belly button lint, they're just everywhere. And we should listen to him. And yet his son hasn't understood it. I do, and I don't know why. It doesn't seem like, it's a great gift to understand it. People should be talking about this man, and therefore talking about his message. Here, I'm going to start him. Let us talk his own way through it. And I've wasted. Now, this introduction took 8 minutes. Let him talk now.
45 years ago now, I came home one day from work.
Back up a tiny bit.
Hi, I'm Thomas Horn, and approximately 45 years ago now, I came home one day from work, stayed up that night in prayer, and then went to sleep. The very next thing I knew, I was standing in front of a very brilliant light.
I'm recording this at 1.25 and a quarter speed, so get through it a little quicker. You may want to listen to it slower at 0.75 speed.
Somehow I knew that I was standing in front of God. I also knew that he had shown me some things, and that at one point even a scroll had unfolded, and I had watched vivid images. I wake up and I write them down. An example that most of the world knows about now was in 2010, when I saw dark clouds rising over the Vatican. I woke up and wrote down that Pope Benedict XVI was going to retire in April of 2012. Started talking about it publicly. In fact, came on Silver Office of Supernatural. I talked about it in 2011. Made that prediction. 2012 came and went, and at first it did not appear that Benedict had resigned. But then, as the world knows now, in February of 2013, the Vatican made an announcement. Pope Benedict XVI has resigned. He has retired. And that same day, the Vatican's media outlet, the El Observatore Romano, gave an interview with the New York Times journalists in which they admitted that Pope Benedict had actually, officially, secretly, resigned his position at the Vatican in March of 2012, and then in April of 2012, it became official with the Curia, the Roman government, and they accepted his resignation. And now, of course, my phone was ringing off the hook. Everybody, everywhere, wanted to know who my insider at the Vatican was, right? Who had been feeding me this information. And I laughingly, of course, they say that if I told them that it was the Holy Spirit, that would really confuse them. Approximately 1 year ago, this experience that I've had all through my adult life happened again. And I was actually on the top of a mountain somewhere, and I was surrounded by thousands and thousands of...
All right, here comes the second dream. Again, what he just said about Pope Benedict stepping down is his letter from God saying that this man is a prophet. Listen to him. Because that's what you do with prophets. You listen to them.
And everybody was in panic. Everybody was screaming and running and looking back over their shoulders, including me. And that part of the vision for me...
This is a second dream now about Apophis. And just want to make sure you understand where he's at. He's presenting two dreams. One is his presentation, authentication of being a prophet, and now this one is the message that God meant him to bring, in my humble opinion, and it's about Apophis. He's already telling you that he was taken to the top of a mountain, and next thing you know, he's running for good reason. I'll try not to interrupt anymore.
The most frightening and the most real, because so far as my mind was concerned at the time, it was actually happening. And I remember turning and looking back over my shoulder, and I could see this giant burning mountain that was coming through the atmosphere, breaking apart as it raced towards the surface of the earth. And as we were all running, all of a sudden, this stone fell into the Pacific Ocean. It knocked all of us off of our feet. The whole planet felt to me like it was shaking, vibrating.
And he just said the Pacific Ocean. By the way, that's exactly where NASA says it's going to hit, if it would ever hit. Okay.
And so roughly that we could not stand up. And I heard this horrible cracking sound, as if literally the mantle of the earth was breaking apart. And again, I looked back over my right shoulder, and I saw this giant tsunami, a massive wall of water that was coming.
I look forward to you joining us at our next investor webinar, where you can drill
up over the top of this mountain, and I knew that we were all getting ready to perish. And just then, as if two large hands came down underneath my arms and lifted me up into the air, so that now I was looking down on the planet, and it was horrible, it was terrifying, as this water was rushing over the top of all of these desperate people who were screaming and crying and praying. And I watched something that only later did I understand was actually the science. I'm not a scientist, so I only could write down what I saw and then later verify this is exactly what scientists say would happen. As the waters of the Pacific Ocean, where this massive burning stone fell, were boiling, and the aerosol that was coming up off of this water moved up into the upper atmosphere. A whole series of hurricane movement started moving across the hemispheres of the earth. And then a second very large part of this stone that had broke off, that evidently as it entered into the atmosphere, impacted the earth and ignited a series of volcanoes. And all of this material was being blown up into the upper atmosphere and getting caught in the jet stream and was moving around the earth. And very soon, within a period of days, darkening out much of the sun and the moon and the stars. And then I woke up. I was so terrified, I literally almost fell out of bed. And grabbed a sheet of paper, which I learned to keep next to my bed with a pen, and I started writing down all of the minute details, blow by blow, of what I had seen and what I had experienced. But before I could do that, it was as if a voice in the room spoke and uttered a single word, and that was the word Apophis. Now, I knew that there was an ancient Egyptian god of chaos by the name Apophis, which was the enemy of light, the enemy of Ra. I knew that. I didn't know a lot more about it than that. And I also knew that NASA had discovered an asteroid at the Kitt Peak National Observatory in 2004. And at the time, they named it Apophis after this Egyptian god of destruction. And at that time, they actually speculated that there was enough of a serious chance that Apophis was going to impact the Earth in 2029, that they put it on their watch list. Later on, they decreased the chance that it's going to impact the Earth in a bit over 9 years from now. But I learned later that this is probably because they're involved in a cover-up, and that the chances of Apophis striking the Earth in 2029 is far greater than what they're admitting at this point. And by the way, in the book, I go into that. It's more than a conspiracy theory. I've interviewed and talked with astronomers, members of NASA, people with above top secret security clearance. Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis from the Pentagon, who was a senior analyst there, put me in contact with impact specialists, people like Nathan Myhrvold, who is constantly...
I'm pausing this to so you can get a good look at this guy here, okay, and his name.
Listed in the top 100 critical thinkers, scientific thinkers in the world, a true polymath with over 800 patents to his name. He once ran the science department at Microsoft. One of the most brilliant men on earth, has recently published a peer-reviewed paper in Astronomy Magazine in which...
Okay, I'm pausing this. Well, yeah, good, you're getting it, because I'm just paused him. For asteroid hunting astronomers, Nathan would be a name like that. Myroyd Void says the sky is falling.
Accuses NASA of an absolute cover-up of the threat that is posed by both Apophis and some other asteroids. So I did all of this research and came to believe that, in fact, of all dates, Friday the 13th, April 2029, Apophis is going to strike the Earth. Now, the facts around this asteroid are astonishing. It is 370...
All right. He says it will strike the Earth. I do want to back up. I can't... Its speed is slightly over normal speed at 1.25. For your sake, I'm doing this fast. You can slow it down. He's giving the size. The size, remember, is according to NASA. Now, will NASA tell the truth? I mean, as soon as they see this, NASA people have got to go on some sort of a alert, like, oh shoot, we can't tell these people all this. Well, we'll shrink it down. We'll do this to it. Maybe make it turn. Say it's a marshmallow. It's made out of marshmallow, not instead of iron or soft rock, ash rock. And I think so. Or it could be 370 meters across, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is, well, 370 meters. Okay, well, a meter's longer than a foot, so let's call it 400 yards across, which would be what, 4 times 7 is 2,100 feet across. What, a mile's 500 or 5,000 feet, so it's almost a half a mile across on the small side of that. All right, let's continue.
Meters wide. 1,200 are astonishing. It is time to strike the Earth.
Okay. I backed it up just a tiny bit. April 13, 2029, Friday the 13th. Now, I want to mention this. Occult people know things we don't. And that makes them bold. They think they know it all. You know, you see Katy Perry, and you see these other, especially witches in Hollywood. They get the smug look, like, oh, they know something you don't. And they're good people because they're white magic. Yeah. Anyway, again, it says, is going to strike the Earth. Not is going to, glance off the atmosphere, not something that size. This is the first time I heard this, or I remember hearing it. So Tom saw it split in half, or two pieces, and there were two impacts. In I think it's chapter 8, it does mention two impacts. Excuse me.
Now, the facts around this asteroid are astonishing. It is 370 meters wide, 1,200 feet wide, or to put that into more of a mental gymnastic, it's 4 NFL football fields wide. It weighs an estimated 20 million metric tons.
Wow.
It is traveling at 28,000 miles per hour.
First time I've seen the speed. Well, I'm going to ask, is it Siri? How fast does an average .22 bullet travel in miles per hour?
Here's an answer from PissisGuernsay.com.
Okay. A .22 bullet travels around 710 to 875 miles per hour. Okay, let's say 1,000 miles per hour. So, and that's way up above it. But so this thing's coming in to hit Earth 28 times faster than a speeding bullet 22. Just to let you know here. Clear up and start again.
And if, as I predict, it impacts the Earth in 2029, it is literally going to be equivalent to, scientists say, 65,000 atomic bombs the size of the ones that we dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of World War II that literally sunk the Japanese island. They say that at a minimum, tens of millions of people will die, and possibly billions of people are going to die. NASA says that if this rock does hit the Earth, it's going to come down probably around the border of Mexico and California, so a highly densely populated area. So you can understand why this was such a terrifying vision to me. However, when Luke speaks of the signs in the asteroids, when the book of Revelation talks about what will happen in chapter 8, when this mighty rock called wormwood, which is what I believe this is, falls up.
I didn't know about the cross reference to Luke 21:25 and 6. He says somewhere around the border of Mexico and California. It's Tyson says it will be about 300 miles outside in the Pacific Ocean.
On the planet, it all precedes a moment in which believers are to look up and lift up their heads because their redemption is drawing nigh. It is a message about the imminency of the second coming of Jesus Christ. And if you are a rapture believer, then of course you know that you're not appointed unto wrath. And you probably won't even be here when this event happens. But it is coming. And it is an opportunity, regardless of your eschatological or prophetic worldview, for believers of every type to take this as a moment to be preachers of the gospel. Paul said, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power, the dunamis, the dynamite of God that can convert from the Jew to the Gentile. And that is what I hope the message that is contained in the book of Wormwood Prophecy will do. Ignite a passion, because I did see in this vision as well, people everywhere, all around the world, on their face, begging God to deliver them from this menace. And there is a precedent in the scripture for God averting a judgment like he did with Nineveh when Jonah preached there. Like he says in the book of Joel, if you will turn to me with all of your heart and soul and mind, he says, then the locust plague won't come. I will send you a blessing instead of a cursing. And even one of the most famous European astronomers in the world today says there is a very real chance that Apophis will go through what he calls a window between Mars and Earth and be slingshot out into space only to return exactly 7 years later.
Okay.